Okay, let's go ahead and do a chapter 3 review on solving equations. All right, you should already know we solve all equations by what? Reverse what? PEMDAS. Also called what? It's also called the reverse order of operations. Okay, you've been taught this since 6th grade. All right, now I picked one that's a more common error problem and one that's not. And I picked one that I'll show you a couple ways on. So make sure you have that down. All right, when I'm solving for a variable, this is the way I want you to always look at it. Here's the variable. I look at the coefficient in front of the variable. It's -1. You better know that means -1 right there. If that is negative on the variable I'm trying to solve for, in this case, there's only one variable I'm trying to solve for, but say once you get to y equals mx plus b, and lines on it, and you have two variables, the one I'm trying to solve for, if the coefficient is negative, you automatically are going to switch it to the other side. So now it becomes positive. Okay. Which means now I'm going to subtract the 32 across. So I have 19 minus 32. Remember how to move anything across the equal sign, I must do the opposite operation. The opposite of negative or subtraction is addition. The opposite of positive is negative or subtraction. Same thing. So 19 minus 32 is -13. And there's my answer. All right. Now here, you can easily do this by subtracting the 7/10 across. 9/10 minus 7/10 is 2/10. Okay, but let's say it was not that. Let's change this to 7/5. Okay, if I have denominators and I like, instead of having to deal with fractions, even though I know you love them, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the fractions by multiplying by the common denominator. What's the common denominator between 5 and 10? 10. So now we're going to distribute this 10 through all three, what are these called? Terms. You need to know your math vocabulary. So the 10 was going to always cancel out with the denominator and or have leftovers, okay? Okay, so 10 to cancel 10, so I get 9 right there. And that's 10 times k is 10k. And the 10 cancel the 5, 2 times 7 is 14. Now again, remember I just got telling you, I look at the coefficient of the variable. Since the coefficient of the variable is positive, I'm going to go ahead and leave it on this side. So this means I'm going to subtract the 14 across. So I have 10k equals, if you're right, minus 14, 9 minus 14 is -5. And last step, divide by 10. Now, can I leave it like that? No, I must always simplify or reduce. That gives me -1/5. I meant to say -1/2. -1/2. Okay. And there's my answer. How can I check my answer? I can plug it back in to see. I'm not going to do that here because we're here trying to save some time. I'm just showing you the steps on how to do it right the first time. All right, so now we're going to write an equation and solve. 13 subtracted from a number. From means whatever's coming next goes first. A number would be x minus, because we got subtraction, 13 equal, is means equals in math. You should already learn this in middle school. Equals -5. Find the number. So now we're solving that. Again, I look at the coefficient of the variable x. It's positive, so I'm leaving it on this side. So I'm just going to add the 13 across. Every time you ask yourself, is the coefficient of the variable positive? And by the way, what's the smart way of saying this? I should not say -5 plus 13. That's not the smart way. That is true. The smart way is saying 13 minus 5. You've been doing that since 2nd grade. 13 minus 5 is 8. You haven't been doing -5 plus 13 since 2nd grade. Okay, and there's my answer. All right, next section. Solving equations by using multiplication and division. Okay, when I have a fraction, I multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of -5/8 is -8/5. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. put that negative 9 over 1. Okay, so then these cancel out, and that gives me W. Remember, I'm always solving for 1W. When it says solve, it means solve for 1W. Okay, you should know that any number multiplied by its reciprocal gives you 1, unless there's a 0 involved in it. Okay, meaning 0. You can't do 0 times, and that'd be 0 over 1 times 1 over 0, because 1 over 0 is undefined. Okay. There is no cross canceling. That's the first thing I'm going to look to do. So I have smaller numbers to deal with. So I multiply across. A negative times a negative is a positive. So I gotta do that. I get 72 over 1 times 5 is 5. You have to know negative times negative is a positive. That's from 6th grade onward. Okay. I could do the same thing now. If I don't like dealing with the negatives much, if I go back to my rule, I see I have a negative coefficient. I would move this across, switch this across, and I could write it as 3/5 s equals 40. Okay, now multiply both sides by the reciprocal, 5/3. Now, I have seen some kids, which means they've been taught it in their middle school by their middle school teacher to do 1 step at a time and do the 5/3 out in 2 steps. If you choose to do that, you can do that. I'm going by the shortest method here. There's no cross canceling with 3 and 40, so I multiply across and I get 200 thirds equals S. Notice when I do that, I didn't have any negatives involved. Whereas over here, when I didn't do it on the first one, I had a negative times a negative as a positive. I had to remember that. Okay, third type here is when I have a mixed number. I need to change this mixed number to an improper fraction. So I go 4 times 2 plus 3. That becomes my new numerator, and the denominator stays the same. You should remember it's 4. It's that times that plus that one. So that's a times sign there, and it's a plus up there. So 8 plus 3 is 11. So I have 5n equals 11 over 4. And I divide by 5 on both sides. Dividing by 5, you should know, is the same thing as multiplying by 1/5. Okay. So instead of, and then there is no cross canceling, so I multiply straight across, I get 11/20ths, and there's my answer. So instead of writing 5n divided by 5 equals 11/4 divided by 5, which is the same thing, then I have to change this division to multiplication by the reciprocal, which now becomes that right there. So instead of having to do that in 2 steps, just do it right away in 1. Now, another way that you can help to remember to do that would be, instead of writing it as underneath 5 there, put it as 1/5 out here. Okay, and then whatever I do on one side, I'm doing the same on the other, and you see the 1/5 is right there. Of course, and the 5's cancel, so you get 1 in. Okay, equals 11/20ths. So that's another way, if that's easier for you to remember, to do that. All right, next, solving multi-step equations. Again, the very first thing I'm asking myself is the coefficient, positive or negative on the variable I'm solving for. It's negative, so I'm going to move it across. So I have 4u, which now means I'm subtracting the 42 across, equals negative 24. Last step, divide by 4, and I get u equals negative 6. Now you ask, why do I keep doing that? You may not think it's a big deal, but it becomes a big deal when you get to inequalities. And I'm going to teach the same way when we get to inequalities, solving inequalities. It's major and has major implications with inequalities, big time. Of extra stuff you'd have to remember if you don't do it my way. So just do it this way every time. You'll save, make it much easier when you come to the inequalities. All right, again, my coefficient is positive, so I'm going to leave it there. So I'm taking that 7, adding that across. So I have 3/4 x equals 15. Multiply by the reciprocal. 4/3. 4/3. 15 over 1. The 3 cancels the 15 5 times. You should be working on cross canceling. It's not cross multiplication, it's cross canceling. I'm canceling things out or simplifying them. So you get 5 times 4 is 20 over 1, which equals 20. Okay, I can do all that in my head. Notice most of you can't do 4 times 15 in your head and get 60, and then 60 divided by 3 is 20. You cross cancel, you deal with smaller numbers. I'm always about simplifying things, making numbers smaller. All right, here. That's just, pretend that's not there. Okay, right over 1, I have a proportion. Remember, a proportion is a ratio that equals a ratio. What's a ratio? A ratio is a fraction. You need to know that you've been dealing with ratios since 6th grade, 6th and 7th grade. So I cross multiply, negative is negative is a positive, and I get 84 equals S plus 12. Now, the one thing that you want to remember is when I have two or more terms in either the numerator or denominator, I put parentheses around that. Wherever there's 2 more terms, that means when I cross multiply, I make sure I distribute that through both terms. So don't forget to put parentheses there. In this case, it didn't matter because you're multiplying by 1, and anything times 1 is itself. Find 3 consecutive odd integers. Consecutive means one after the other. So if the first one's x, the next one would be, notice it says whose sum is, so I'm adding. So there's the first one. What's the next one after x? X plus 1. The next, consecutive odd integers. So in order to get the next odd integer, I have to add 2. I was just thinking consecutive integers. The consecutive odd, I must add 2. How do I get the next one? I add 4 to that one, to the original, or 2 more to the last one. Okay, and that equals 117, as it says there. So 1, 2, 3x plus 6 equals 117. Subtract 6 across to get 3x equals 111. Now, I know, just so you know, so we're practicing this, divisibility rules. I don't know if your middle school teacher in pre-algebra taught you your divisibility rules that used to always be taught. With this new curriculum, how things are going, unless the teacher cares enough and brings in those important things, such as divisibility rules, a lot of times they drop them out. But the rule for 3, if a 3 is going to divide into a number, is if I add up the digits, and it divides by 3 evenly. So what is 1 plus 1 plus 1? That's 3. Does 3 divided by 3 evenly? Yes, it does. So that guarantees me that I'm going to get a integer. Okay, and so 3 goes into 11 3 times, and I have 2 left over. Bring down the 1, 21. 3 goes into 21 7 times. You should be working on your mental math skills, okay, in doing that. All right, next section. Solving equations with variables on both sides. Okay, so now you need to listen to this concept, okay? We're talking about doing things smart again, not the way that necessarily a book always teaches or whatever. I'm always talking about doing things the smarter way, not just one way. We want to learn the smart ways of doing things. Okay, the smart way is I always take the smaller number. So remember, I'm going to get variables to one side, constants to the other. I take the smaller variable, negative 8 is much smaller, is 16 smaller than 8, and move that over to the bigger side. Then I will always come up with a positive answer if one of them is positive already, which 8 is. So that means I got to add the what across, the negative 13. When I add that across, a 13, a number by itself, is called a what? You should know this already, a constant. Every time you're doing math, you should be reviewing vocab words and saying them correctly. The more you say it, the more it gets pounded in your head, and then it's easier for you to follow along with the teacher in class. Those of you who want to be lazy and not do that, you're going to be asking, what's that word mean? What's that word mean? Asking your friends, because you haven't chosen to remember the vocab that's used in math. And math, you use the same vocab all throughout middle school and high school, college. Okay, you need to learn your vocabulary. So I add the 8n across plus the 8n there, it's 16n equals 13 plus 13 is 26. I divide by 16 on both sides. And am I done? No, it's not, because these are both even numbers, which means they divide by 2. That's the GCF. Remember, greatest common factor is the GCF. The GCF is 2, so I divide each by 2, and I get 13/8. And there's my answer. Box in your answer or circle your answer so I can easily find it when you're doing your assignment. All right, here goes back to to begin with. Getting rid of fractions, as I told you before. I did the example earlier. Notice we have a 2 and an 8. I want to get rid of fractions and just deal with integers. So I'm going to multiply by that common denominator of 8. Okay, so distribute the 8 through there. Okay, so now pay attention how you do that again. What you do is you go 8 divided by 2. What's that equal? 4 times, so you're doing divided by this, and then times the numerator. 8 divided by 2 is 4, times 1 is 4d. Plus 8 divided by 8 is 1, times 3 is 3. 8 divided by 1 is 8, times negative 2 is negative 16d. Now we have all integers. And what I just got done saying on the first one, I take which one over to which side? Always the smaller to the bigger side. So I add 16d across to the 4d that's already there, it's 20d. And then that means I'm moving the constant back across the other side. The opposite of plus 3 is negative 3. And last step is to divide by 3. And there's my answer since it does not simplify. Negative 3, 20s. Here, remember I have a number outside of parentheses. I must distribute. I picked this one because you have distributive property on the left side of the parentheses and you have distributive property on the right side. Okay, that's why I chose it. You have to look to see that. So I have 8p minus 5p, distributing the 5 through minus 15 equals 21p minus 3. Combine like terms on both sides. So I combine like terms on the left, I get 3p minus 15 equals 21p minus 3. Now again, I ask myself, which side has the smaller variable? 3p. So I'm moving that across to 21p, which means I have to move the constant to the other side. So I'm adding 3. And I'm opposite of plus 3 is minus. So I'm minusing 3p. Line it up under like terms. So that's gone, that's gone. Negative 15 plus 3 is negative 12, and 21p minus 3p is 18p. Last step, solving for p is to divide by 18. Can I leave it like that? No, I can't, because that simplifies. What's the GCF of 12 and 18? You should know that to be 6. So I divide each by 6, and I get negative 2/3. And there's my answer. Okay, the perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter is 2L plus 2W is 24, equals 24. Find the dimensions of its length. So that means we don't know its length. Find the dimensions. Oh, if its length, so it's if L is means equals, so there's L equals 3 inches greater than its width. So width plus 3. So that means when I see the L, I substitute in W plus 3 into that right there. Why? Because remember, I only have one equation here. With one equation, I can only solve it for a number and get a number if I have one variable. Right now, I have two variables, don't I? I have the L and the W. Okay, now I could have solved for W and substituted in L minus 3 for W, but I can only have one variable in there. Since it's already set up for L equals W plus 3, that's the smarter way to do it. Okay, so now I do that. 2 times, and whenever I substitute in, I put parentheses every single time. Whenever you use substitution, parentheses, W plus 3 plus 2W equals 24. Now, I could divide each term by 2 since they're all even numbers, okay, and make it smaller, but I'll just go ahead and distribute this time. Okay, so I get 2W plus 6 plus 2W equals 24. Combine like terms, 4W plus 6 equals 24. Subtract the 6 across, and I get 4W equals 18. Divide by 4, and I get 18/4. And I have to ask myself, does that simplify? Well, of course it simplifies because they're both even numbers. Two even numbers always divide by 2 at least. That may not be the GCF. In this case, it is, but it's at least going to have a GCF of 2. So I divide each by 2, and I get 9/2. In high school, we're allowed to leave it as an improper fraction. Remember, when the numerator is greater than the denominator, it's called an improper fraction. A proper fraction is when the numerator is less than the denominator. Okay, so you don't have to change to a mixed number either. That would be 4 and a half or 4.5. These are all the same thing. Okay, you don't need to do that. You can just leave it as 9/2. All right, next one. Solve for x in this first one. So notice the whole equation. What's an equation? An equation is made up of two algebraic or two expressions. And what are expressions? These are when I have one or more terms without an equal sign. So that's an expression, that's an expression. So an expression that equals another expression is called an equation. And of course, terms, to break down expression, terms are separated by plus or minus signs. So there's one term and there's the second term. So I have two terms in the left expression and one term in the right expression. Okay. Now I want to solve for x. Again, we solve all equations by reverse PEMDAS. So that means I have to get rid of the negative c to the other side, and I have to get rid of the a to the other side. Remember, reverse PEMDAS. You've been doing this since 7th grade, maybe 6th. Okay, so what's the, that says a times x. What's the opposite of times? Division. What's the opposite of minus c? Plus c. So that's how I'm moving those across. Now, which one comes first? I see at the bottom level is either add or subtract. Well, there's an addition one. So I'm going to add the c across first. So I get b plus c. Notice I did not line it up underneath the b because it's not a b. It's a different variable, so I put it off to the side. And last step, I already know what it is to do. I have it written right there, divide. So divide by a. Divide by a. And so x equals b plus c all over a. Notice I did not say b plus c divided by a, because if I say b plus c divided by a, what that means is b plus c over a. That is not what that says. So I don't say b plus c divided by a, I say b plus c all over a. Or I could say the quantity of b plus c divided by a, because quantity means parentheses. So I could have said, remember the two or more terms in the numerator or denominator, I put parentheses around it. So I could say the quantity b plus c divided by a. Okay, over here, solving for y, as it says. So I get y by itself. So again, the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of multiplication is division. I know I do subtraction first. So I have ry equals tx minus m minus s. Again, there's no s on the right side, so I can't line it up under any of those terms. And last step, I'm solving for y, so I got to divide the whole thing by r. And there's my answer. Okay. And here, 1/4 of a number x, there's 1/4 of, means times, a number x is equals 3 more than, so it's 3 more than, it puts it plus 3 at the end, 3 times a number y. So there's my equation. Solve for x. I want x by itself. It means I would get rid of the 1/4, which means multiplying both sides by 4. So now I get x equals, and I go ahead and distribute this 4 through there, 12y plus 12. And there's my answer. Okay, oh, we got one more. Statistics, mean, median, and mode for each set. Mean, another word for mean you should know is average, which means add up the numbers and divide by the number that there are of them. So 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 11 is 18, plus 3 is 21, plus 9 is 30. Divided by how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That equals 6. So that's the mean. The median is the middle number after arranging them from least to greatest. Are they in least to greatest right now? No, they're not. So I have to rearrange it. 2, 3, 5, 9, 11. And now, what is the middle number? There's a total of 5. So I go 5 divided by 2, that's 2.5, and then drop off the half, or 2.5, I'm going to go up a half to 3, the third one. Okay, so there's 2 now on each side. 5 is the middle number. Okay, 2 on each side. So that's the median. And the mode means which one occurs the most. Is there one that occurs the most here? No, they all only occur one time, so no mode. Okay, you can either have one mode or usually only talk up to bimodal, meaning two modes, two of the same number. So let's look at this here. If I range it 3, 3, 6, 12, 14, 17. How many numbers are there? Well, first off, let's add them together. 6 plus 6 is 12, and 12 is 24, 34, 38, 48, 55 is the total, divided by how many numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So 55 divided by 6 is 9 and 1/6. That's the mean. 9, 1/6, I believe, is be 9.16 repeating bar on your calculator. So if you're to do that, you have to make sure you put 9.16 repeating bar. If you leave off the repeating bar, you're wrong. You can't put 9.1 or 9.16 or 9.6 repeating bar. All right, now, so as a mean, that's the average on the median. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 numbers. I have 2 middles. 6 and 12 are the 2 middles. So there's an even number of them. I got 2 middles. Then I have to find the average of those two, or the midpoint of those two. What's the middle number between 6 and 12? How far is it from 6 to 12? There's 6. What's half of 6? 3. So I can either plus 3 or minus 3. 6 plus 3 is 9, or 12 minus 3 is 9. So 9 is the median. Okay, and last, the mode, there happen to be 2 3s. So the mode is 3. All the rest only have one value. The mode is 3. Okay, same idea here, but we're using a stem and leaf. I picked this, so for those of you who forgot how to read a stem and leaf in middle school, you have it this way as well. So as it tells you, here's your legend or your key, the 2, and there's the bar, which is that piece right there, and then there's the 3 right there. That means 23. So that tells me I should be smart to know that this means 20, 30, and 40. And these are my single digits. So these go by 10s, these go by 1s. Okay, you should be smart to figure that out. Okay, so then one nice thing about a stem and leaf, it's already in numerical order from least to greatest. So I didn't have to rearrange it like I did up top. I could go ahead and look at the mode real quick nicely here. I see I have 3 4s. Is it 4? No, it's not. It's really 44. So the mode is 44. That's easy to see right there. The median, I count up how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I have an even number, so it's 7 and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now if I want to count, I can count below it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers below, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers above, just to verify. So what are those two numbers? 31 and 39. How far is from 31 to 39? That's a total of 8. What's half of 8? 4. So I could add 4. 31 plus 4 is 35 equals the median, which is the same thing as going 39 minus 4 to get my 35. So that's a 5 right there. Okay, so the median is 35, and now I need to find the mean, add them all up. Okay. So I got 21 plus 23 is 44, 64, 71, 91, 98, 118, 126. 126 right there. 30 and 31, 61, 91, and 9 is 100 right there. 42 plus 44 is 86, 126, 130, 170, 174, 214, 220, 260, 268. Okay, working on the mental math skills right there. Now the rest of you just put in your calculator. Okay, so I get 14, carry the 1, 8, 9, and 4. 494 divided by, how many were there again? 3, 6, 9, 11, 14. Okay, 14 goes into 49 3 times. That's 42. I'll leave 7 left over, 74. 5 times 14 is 70. And it leaves me 4 left. 4 over 14 reduces to 2/7. Let's see if I did that right. Bring up the calculator. It's going to come up. Graphing calculator. See, one thing you want to try to do if you can is work on your mental math skills. Uh-oh. What happened here? Do I not have this? Okay. The touch is not working here, so let's do it this way then. Okay. Sitting down here. All right, here's my calculator right up top here. Don't forget for the DCAS, then over here where it says exhibits, this is your formula sheet you get to use for Algebra 1 geometry and Algebra 2, same formula sheet. Okay, so what were my numbers? I was dividing here, 494 divided by 14. 490, oops, clear. 494 divided by 14. Notice this is going to give me a decimal. Then I hit math, enter. 247 divided by 7. So I divide that in half. Did I have 35? Let me make sure I had 35. Yes, I did. Okay. So if I go back up, do second entry, second entry, go back to that one. Now, I know it's 35, so I'm going to subtract off 35. Here's a shortcut. See, so that gave me as a mixed number. If I just want the fraction 35 and what, I subtract off the whole number, which is 35. That gives me only a decimal. Now I go ahead and hit math, enter, and I get 2/7. Exactly what I have, 35 and 2/7 right there. So pretty good mental math. So that's something you should work on to develop your mental math skills and keep them going. Unfortunately, teachers allowed kids to use calculators in middle school, and it's hurting their ability to do math in high school as a result because they can't do mental math quick and keep up with the teacher. Okay, that does it for chapter 3. 32 minutes.